Well, in our first story, Joy News Checks is already revealing that some Ghanaians are defying President Akufo-Addo's directive to wear face masks. These defiant Ghanaians say they have supernatural protection in God they serve. Latif Idris brings us more.
The COVID-19 pandemic continues to spread in Ghana like a wildfire, with cases now standing at 11,964. Ghana is now 36 cases shy of reaching the 12,000 milestone. Cognizance of that grim picture, the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in his 11th address to the nation, made this declaration.
Residents of these 4 regions, and indeed all Ghanaians, must remember that the wearing of masks is now mandatory. Leaving our homes without a face mask or face covering on is an offense. The police have been instructed to enforce this directive, which is the subject of an executive instrument.
But on the streets of Accra, barely 24 hours after that declaration by the President, a lot more people are not adhering to the protocol of wearing face masks.
According to me, and I say according to Bible, no, Exodus 7:15, no, me read the Bible, and I'm in
I believe I cannot be infected because the Bible says disease cannot be transferred. The safety measures cannot work for me.
Comply very well by putting on my face mask, having hand sanitizers and stuff. I don't believe face masks should be worn just while walking on the streets at all times. Face masks should be worn only or mostly when you're interacting with people, when you're about to board a vehicle, and well, you can't stand alone and put a face mask.
We are on the streets, and we have some people, they don't have the money to buy the nose mask. When you go to Italy, Germany, and those countries, the government bought it for them, free. But here, they say they give them money. And the money to me like this, nobody buy anything for me. Nobody buy anything for you. So that money where they give them, what are they doing with that money?
And we'll bring you more on this discussion right here on the show and other bulletins right here on the channel. But moving on, pensioners have been sharing personal stories about how they have been shortchanged by the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SSNIT. The Forum for Public Sector Registered Pension Association a week ago threatened to embark on a strike if SSNIT failed to come up with its method of computing past credit of pensioners. SSNIT, in a statement, explained it has since been transparent on how it calculates the lump sum and monthly payments over the years. In the following report, Nancy Emefa-Jiradosi talks to some pensioners about the meager amount they received from SSNIT and how these monies are not a true reflection of their contributions to the fund during their working years.
Old and frail pensioners chanted, demanding better services from SSNIT. They took turns narrating how they have been shortchanged after many years of active service and rewarded with monies they describe as nothing.
From 1982 to 2009, you are giving me 9,000. And tier 2, only 10 years, are giving me over 20,000 Ghana cedis. I'm entreating all of us to come together with our unions to fight for the others who will be retiring until 20 years to come. If we don't fight now, all those who will be coming later on for the rest of the 20 years are going to be cheated.
For a period of 10 years, they are giving me about 35,000 cedis. That is from 2010 January to 2020. When I assessed my account, it was 35,048 cedis. Just 2,146, which is very bad. So those people at SSNIT, they are siphoning our blood.
Madam Margaret had worked for 42 years. 32 of her contributions were with SSNIT. She says the lump sum given her is woefully inadequate and not a true reflection of her years in the service.
And then 4,476.34 was what was due for me as a pension. Really, I wasn't happy.
But Mother Margaret is not alone. Mr. Agri is pained. He cannot bring himself to accept the money he has been given.
For about 26 years, but 16 years, now Osheska Edemamia about 44,200, which is a mega way amount of medical fee. Even 60 cry and
Chairman of the forum, Isaac Bamplado, reiterated the association's intention to embark on a strike if SSNIT fails to come up with its method of computation.
The question we are asking is, this amount that SSNIT is paying, has it been approved by the MPRA board? It's a big no. This is from SSNIT. It said, due to the challenges with our OBS IT system, SSNIT has only been paying 75% accrued interest to members thus far. This is their own statement, though. It's not my statement. Did they ever tell you that? Is it not at IE? It's cheating. They are cheating. They are shortchanging you. 447 million. That's how much they spent on administering the funds under their control. These are contributors' money. And then you pay 59 million to contributors, and then you are making it look as if you've done something. They spent on themselves 447 million Ghana cedis, contributors' money. And you pay nothing. Yes. Should this go on? Lalai.
The pensioners say they cannot undo what they describe as mistakes by SSNIT. They are hoping that future generation will not be affected.
We shall look
And while this was ongoing on the other side, the coalition of aggrieved customers of Menzgold were also pushing for their luck. Now, the group at a press conference demanded payment of their monies from the Consolidated Fund. Customers currently are angry after a report emerged that the CEO of Menzgold, Nana Pia Mensah, popularly called Nam1, had lavishly signed a new artist onto his recording label, Xylophone, when he had failed to pay back their monies. Here's a report by Mamiesi Thompson.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
Group chairman Samuel Odate is angry. His anger stems from what he describes as lavish signing of a new artist by CEO of Menzgold, Nana Pia Mensah, to his record label Xylophone last weekend.
This signing ceremony, which was organized with grandeur, pomp and pageantry, and in the full glare of our state authorities, occurs while victims of Menzgold continue to record deaths among them, with current figure no less than 55 dead among Menzgold customers. It is very sad. It is not surprising that Nam1, the father of Menzgold, Brew Marketing Consult, Payboy, Ives Mineral, Metallica Refinery, and SG Gold has got enough money to sign on artists and to spare and go on a free-for-all spending, while victims of Menzgold customers continue to die.
The aggrieved customers say they feel cheated that he did not use the money to pay them instead. They want him arrested and his properties confiscated.
Government should arrest Nam1, Mr. Nana Yaofe, Corporate Affairs Manager, Stoneboy, Niama Matefio, and the PRO immediately. 3, confiscate properly and genuinely all assets of NAM1 and Menzgold, including landed and movable assets, private jets, sell them for the state.
Although Menzgold attempted to make some payments last year, the plan was not successful. In what appears to be the last kicks of a dying horse, customers are calling on government to pay them from the consolidated fund.
Government to pay us from the consolidated fund. That is what we are saying. Because government has the ultimate responsibility to see that this issue has been resolved once and for all. And
why the consolidated fund?
Because we think that is the account for the state and we are equally citizens. Government has a lot of accounts, and that account is the account that Parliament can give approval for government to use to settle us. Because Parliament is the state of Ghana. That is why we are calling on the government to do the needful.
Oh, that's it. Our latest news update. But before we go, the Joy Learning Channel had chosen 2 students as ambassadors. Now, the 2 were chosen from over 600 students from across Ghana and some West African countries through an essay competition organized. Now, they wrote on the topic how Ghana can become an e-learning center and make e-learning accessible to all. 10 finalists were selected, the final 2 being crowned in a virtual ceremony. Hannah Odami joined them for the event and now reports.
The Joy Learning Channel is the first ever educational channel in Ghana with a focus on junior high and senior high students. They are taught by teachers on television. 15-year-old Nanabina Chiredua of the Yasantua Girls Senior High School and 14-year-old Tete Famous Benson of the Blencoe RC School are the new ambassadors of the channel. For the next 1 year, they are expected to disseminate information from the Joy Channel to their communities as well as their colleagues. Channel manager of Joy Learning, Nana Iya Asiedu, shed some light on the competition.
We designed this concept to give them the opportunity to improve on their writing skills and to also give them a platform to share topics on national issues affecting them directly.
One of the judges, A.C. Ohene, managing news editor of Adum News, also explained how the selection was made.
Usual GPS, the grammar, punctuation, and the spelling. That is the mechanical accuracy. Where the punctuation should be, where the comma should be, wrong spelling, all those things. If you did anything wrong, we took just half of a mark.
There was a surprise element for the 10 finalists. They had the opportunity to ask a musician Manifest questions.
All right. Please, when you were coming up in your career, did you face challenges with people commenting about you, giving ill information about you? How did you cope with that?
Oh, you know, one of my secret talents that people don't know is that I have such a great capability of ignoring people.
Aside being ambassadors, Nanabina Chiredua and Tete Famous Benson also received education materials from the Joy Learning Channel. For Joy News, I am Hannah Odami.
And you can learn a lot more about what is ongoing, becoming topical on your discussion platforms right here on the AM show. Thank you for the latest new update. But look, we have to tell you, we have a newspaper review. When we come back, we'll have all these for you. Stay with us. Well, we're back. Mabavi, good morning to you.
Oh, hi, good morning.
I haven't seen you on air. I've seen you.
You haven't seen me on air? Yeah. Okay, so you're seeing me on air. But, so don't look at me like then. Look at me, like watch me. Yeah.
Okay.
Roland Pa. Okay, welcome to the newspapers. This is where we review the newspapers, but there's some news coming in. 2 of our colleagues in Shirado and Joseph Akable will be joining us via Zoom to do the review. But first, let's go to Kumasi because we're told that the intensive care units of the Komfo Anokye Teaching Hospital will, for the next 2 weeks, operate at half capacity after most doctors there were asked to go into isolation. There's a memo that Love News cited, which says staff at the facility were exposed to a patient who turned out positive for COVID-19. So Erastus Asare Donkor is our colleague who's joining us to give us more. Erastus, good morning to you. What's the backstory of this?
Well, so for some time now, we've been having information from some of the frontline staff that the 2 isolation centers we have here in Kumasi, i.e. Komfo and Kumasi South Hospital, are full. And so patients are even being brought into the main ward at Komfo. And then many of the health professionals too have been exposed to COVID-19. In fact, we are hearing that we have close to 80 of the doctors and nurses being infected by COVID-19. And then yesterday, one of my sources sent me this memo. And if I have to read portions of it for you.
Yes, please do, Erastus.
Just a moment.
Don't worry.
So that's the background to this whole thing. We are having information that the 2 centers are overwhelmed, and so currently they are not able to provide full services. The memo is subject is staff exposure to COVID-19, and it's from the head of Directorate of Anesthesia and Intensive Care, Komfo Teaching Hospital, to the medical director, and the date is June 12, 2020, and it reads that most of our intensive care unit, ICU doctors and nurses, got exposed to polytrauma patients on admission in the ICU who tested positive for COVID-19. The risk assets put most of them at high-risk exposure and have to self-quarantine for 14 days. In view of that, urgent management meeting was held, and the duty roster of the remaining staff has been modified such that the remaining doctors will do cover for emergencies and obstetric cases only at NAXA Theatre. And then 2, the ICU will not run at full capacity for the next 14 days. So that is the memo that we intercepted. But upon talking to many of the doctors, we are learning that those who got exposed to this patient today will undergo testing, and the results are expected within 24 hours. And so until then, they have to stay away from the ICU for now.
Out here, those who got exposed?
Yes.
How many of them? Do we know?
We don't know the exact number, but I'm told that there are many due to the nature of the case they were attending to.
So practically, how is the place going to be operating going forward, effective today?
And so they are going to, per the memo I've seen, attend to certain emergency cases only, obstetrics and the other one is mentioned only for now, until they are able to do the test and clear some of the doctors to come back to duty. But from what my sources are telling me, the situation is that the isolation center itself is full, and so more patients are coming in with severe cases, I'm told. And so many of them some of them have been moved to even the main ward, which under normal circumstances should not happen. When you check with Kumasi South Hospital as well, the place is also full. Recently, that was about 3 days ago, a patient who was tested positive for COVID-19 was referred to Sontreso Hospital. When he got there, he was told that they do not admit such cases there, and so he had to be referred to Kumasi South. There too, they were told that the place cannot admit him, and so he was moving around, and imagine, and he was sick as well. And so it raises questions about, expansion and other things.
Absolutely. Well, Erastus, we'll leave you to do the necessary follow-ups in terms of impact. We'll try and see if we can get hold of the Health Directorate to do a follow-up on this. That's our colleague, Erastus Asare Donkor, with this exclusive coming from the Komfo Teaching Hospital. The news is that the intensive care units at the facility will, for the next 2 weeks, operate at half capacity after most doctors there were asked to go into isolation, and that's because they were exposed to a patient who turned out positive for COVID-19. There will be more of this. Let's get into the newspapers proper. Let's say hello to Joseph Akable and Inshirado.
Joseph Akable, the man in front of Bob Marley.
Did they come to me?
Who they speak pidgin for that? Inshira, we don't want you.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Inshira. Joseph, how are you?
Roland?
Chala, a day. Any hotels you've visited over the last 12 hours?
In the last 12 hours?
Yeah.
I have been able to read, sleep, pray when I woke up, gone for my morning walk, and as usual, I'm happy to be alive. So
we thank God.
Hopefully I can infect you with my excitement about life.
Okay. Joseph, good morning. We've missed you in the newsroom. When are you coming back?
I'm back. That's why you see me now.
Okay, virtual. That's good. All right. So Joseph is doing the Ghanaian Times, and Dispatch and Inshira will do the Daily Guide. I think we have to start.
I've got the Daily Graphic and the Finder, and Roland would say he'll do the rest. So we'll start with you guys. Joseph, let's go.
Joseph, let's start with you.
Okay, so let me first start with the front page of the Daily Dispatch. It has a photograph of Kennedy Agyapong here. It says, as he turns 60 today, Kennedy Agyapong reveals how he made his first $1 million. It's on the front page of the Daily Dispatch. And the 22 seats the NDC won by less than 2,000 votes in 2016. Also on the front page, government begins disinfection of over 1,720 basic schools in Bono East and Ahafo regions. And so that is on the front page of the Daily Dispatch newspaper. The back page has the story relating to the NDC winning 22 seats by less than 2,000 votes. It also has a story about compilation of new register will prevent manipulation in 2020 polls. That's according to the EC chairperson. And there is a photograph of a candidate who is contesting in the upcoming NP primaries also on the back page. I mean, good means of campaigning, obviously. We can do the front page of the Ghanaian Times. It's a good news, but some good news, obviously. Noguchi poised to develop a vaccine. On the front page, as a photograph of Professor Ampofo, Abraham Kwabna Annan, Professor Abraham Kwabna Annan of Noguchi on the front page. We have 1,729 basic schools in Bono East and Ahafo regions undergo disinfection. And NPP fulfills 14% of 2016 manifesto promises. That's according to the NDC, also on the front page of the Ghanaian Times there. It has some advice in terms of wearing mask and the appropriate way to wear mask also on the front page. The back page of the Ghanaian Times has a story on road projects in the Upper West region. Amakwata inspects those projects. And the Central region records 3,198 teenage pregnancies within 5 months. Quite a worrying trend there. We can do some details when we settle the details.
Teenage pregnancies.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
When you ask us to stay home, it comes with some kind of implication, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's do the Daily Graphic and the Finder, front page of the Daily Graphic. Ahead of voters registration exercise, 6 ready, 3 oppose, 1 undecided. Academic work begins in tertiary institutions. NIA starts mop-up registration Thursday. Domestic airlines make progress after easing restrictions. That's on the front page and the center spread. Let's introduce crop-specific policies to address food security, according to Kweku Asante, who is the executive director of Agency for Health and Food Security, which is an NGO. Also design special packages for the aged. That's a call by an advocacy group. And Catholic Church launches blood donation campaign. All these stories in the center spread of the Daily Graphic newspaper. On the back page, registrants frustrated on first day of Ghana card issuance. Story says the National Identification Authority last Wednesday began issuing registrants with Ghana cards, albeit as the Daily Graphic has observed, patronage of the exercise has been low. The exercise was set to start last Monday, but was rescheduled for last Wednesday and will be on till Thursday, June 18. Also, Mers Gold customers call for NAM1's head It says the former chief executive officer of defunct gold dealership firm Men's Gold, Nana Pia Mensah, alias Nam1, says he has paid over 9.6 million Ghana cedis to some customers whose money was locked up in his firm. He has consequently assured customers who are yet to receive their money that they would have them before the end of the year. In a statement, but some aggrieved customers of the defunct Men's Gold have challenged him to publish names of the customers he claimed to have paid, as well as indicate the amount paid with dates of the payments. Details there. Find that front page. Boost for COVID-19 treatment. Severely ill patients to be treated with convalescent plasma from recovered patients. And blood service awaits funds to acquire consumables to start. It's all related to this. Disregard NDC's distortion of facts agenda. That's according to the Information Minister, Kojo Ponkroma. Tertiary schools in Accra gear up for post-COVID reopening, and Health Ministry gets clearance to employ 8,073 health professionals. That's it for me with the two papers I have. Inshira will do the daily guide. Inshira?
Yeah, so on the front page of the daily guide, Nam1 seems to not be leaving the news anytime soon. The banner headline says Nam1 sparked outrage over 9.6 million CD payment. And also NAPO hits back at Mahama over varsity bill. And also Volkswagen have finally assembled the first car in Ghana. And let me just go into the story. Is that okay?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
All right, fantastic.
Yes, sir. So, always brief. Always brief, Inshira. Always brief.
Say that again.
Always brief, Inshira.
No problem. You know, so Nam1's story has to do with the fact that he had claimed that he's paid, or his firm has paid some of the customers who've had their monies locked up in the Men's Gold saga, 9.6 million. And this has sparked some serious outrage because the customers are saying that claim is not true and that he must show some level of authenticity to back the claim that he's made that much payment. Of course, you all know that he's in court because the Securities and Exchanges Commission, clamped down on the Men's Gold operation, that it was illegal. And so he has some questions to answer in court, and people have their monies locked up. So this comment or this claim to have made payments certainly would raise eyebrows if your money is in there. We hope to see that he's able to come clean on these claims. Also, Volkswagen finally has released the first car that has been assembled. It's a VW Tiguan. It's a crossover utility vehicle between a large SUV and a saloon. So we would like to see if this changes the price point or whether, but the key thing for me in this is that it creates local jobs. As for the price, we'll discuss that later. But hopefully that will bring down the cost. The manufacturer's recommended selling price would come down a little bit because it's produced here in Ghana. So certain costs would have been avoided. Hopefully, Mamavi can buy one for me on my birthday.
But in reality, if you look at the price computation of whether new or used cars, one of the incremental reasons why we have the price always high is because of the freight and then the charges locally. So perhaps maybe the freight and the port charges, which are always on taxation, if removed, maybe we could get to maybe around the almost price of what it is in Europe or in America. So we're hoping that we'll get there. But if you look at,
it'll be nice to find out, and I think I will be making some inquiries of both.
Please do.
The MSRP will be on this one.
Okay, and I have the Statesman and the Enquirer. The Enquirer is back. Thankfully, the National Enquirer.
Who is the editor? Do you see the editor at the bottom there?
I know that it's owned by Raymond Akwabo. Raymond Archer.
It's Raymond Archer. But Raymond Archer is very voluble, but he doesn't
So the managing editor now is Comrade PK Mayambi. And I know that one of the comrades we have on the screen is Joseph Akable. Joseph, cool it. So the Enquirer has on the front page, NDC exposes Akufo-Addo's failure on 2016 manifesto promises, scoring him 14%, and there was a swift counter-reaction. Swift. Very fascinating yesterday. We'll discuss that on the show today. A fight over supremacy in Volta MPP. Amawu boys chasing Lecha out. And we have Know Your Parliamentary Candidate in your constituency. Kwabena Minta Kando. Ablan Gomashi, Nasser Mahamature, and then Professor Margaret Kweku. They're all here. And those are the stories we have on the Enquirer. The front page of the Statesman has a story, NDC manifesto propaganda fails. Yeah. Counter headlines. As government also exposes lies on fulfilled promises. Okay, you can't bar your subject from national exercise. Chief cautions colleagues. All right. And I'm sure it's a reaction to the Domahini. No. All right, so what's your pick, Joseph?
I think the Central Region story, the one from the Ghanaian Times, has to do with Central Region recording 3,198 teenage pregnancies within 5 months. That's from January to now. We are told that, according to the Ghana Health Service, that drivers, farmers, and teachers continue to be the group of men who are impregnating the teens. And this is of concern. The health directors have described it as very pathetic and called for pragmatic measures to be put in place to tackle it. She was addressing some youth groups in Ekumfi at a day's step-down engagement between youth groups and implementations on youth participation in decision-making at Ekumfi. And so this is not obviously good news. I mean, around this time that we are obviously dealing with other issues. Nomami is making the reference to what could have been the impact of restrictions and people staying home and students not going to school. I mean, that is perhaps a viable way of looking at it, but I mean, still the challenge remains that indeed teenage pregnancy is still a big deal, and very unfortunately that we have drivers, farmers, and teachers also leading that. And I think obviously we must pay some attention to dealing with this because of the impact it tends to have. I mean, more likely than not, even though they are not supposed to drop out of school, you have a lot of the teenagers who get pregnant and end up dropping out of school. And that obviously affects the future and the nation in the long run. And so this is something that we must obviously attend to, and the Central Region must be concerned about that if you can record that number within just 5 months. Absolutely.
I am beginning to think that this should be a national concern, because apart from the teenagers, we've had a conversation, and I think I did a story, which is on myjoyonline.com, about the implications of what we are experiencing, the lockdown, the aftermath of that as well, with a lot of people, staying idle. Was a doctor, I think, a specialist who spoke to us from the Ghana Health Service, who was also concerned. So we will be seeing a lot more, unfortunately, a lot more of these issues because of the special, season that we find ourselves in. There's a story that is not in any of the newspapers, but it was in our bulletin on radio at 6 a.m. Wear a face mask or pay a fine of 20 cedis. That's the new directive announced by the whole municipal assembly in the Volta region to compel residents to wear it. The region has recorded close to 300 cases, and the Volta regional minister, Dr. Archibald Yao Lecha, is concerned over the public response to coronavirus preventive directives in the whole municipality. He said the attitude of market folk especially caused the virus to spread much faster and was contributing to the rising number of positive cases in the region. He's, however, confident the newly bylaw will reverse the situation. So this is what the whole municipality is doing, unlike what the Ashanti Region Security Council started doing. They were asking people to work. They find you not wearing the mask, and they give you a task, which of course we know is contrary to law. What the whole municipality has done, which is a bylaw, is more appropriate. But I don't know how. So 20 cedis if you don't wear it. Would that compel people to? I guess it's...
Well, if you look at the act that or the law that establishes all these assemblies, they are entitled to promulgate a number of these within their domain, and particularly within the jurisdictions that they operate as part of the efforts to trickle down enforce regulations. And so, one, they're empowered to do what they have to do. The thing I don't know about is that the regional minister necessarily is not the municipal or the metropolitan chief executive, and that falls directly to the. So if it's a directive then to the MMDCs within the region, I thought that more would have been forthright, and then he's back in it. But since he's the regional minister,
oh, I think it is. Maybe he's just announcing what has been done.
Yes, I actually listened to the directive on radio, and he had made a point that they had directed the assemblies to pass the bylaws to reflect that.
Very well.
And so that is how they are going about it. I think it's a good move. It's quite innovative if you compare it to what others are doing contrary to law in other regions. I think we should take a day or two and observe how implementation, maybe over a week, to see how implementation goes. I think that if they're able to strictly enforce it, but what I'm not getting a sense of is what the default will be. And so if someone does not pay the 20 cedis, what happens to the person?
Exactly.
And so if we get a bit of clarity on that, but if they go about enforcing it, I think, suffering, losing some 20 cedis simply because you are not wearing a mask, if it proves effective, it should be a measure that should be replicated in other parts of the country, because, we are all concerned about the spike in cases and the issue of death. I saw a statement from Occupy Ghana. I don't know whether that has got your attention.
Yeah,
Occupy Ghana is suggesting that the death rate that is being announced may be less than what's actually the case. And so, we should all be concerned about what's happening with regards to COVID-19.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, so they find you, this is something we have to do a follow-up on. Would they give you a receipt for the 20 cedis? Would officers also take advantage of it and say, give me 5 cedis so that I will not arrest you, so that you will not, it's not arrest, but so that you don't pay the 20 cedis. Derek Akosan, producer, what are you saying?
So we're helping to build a municipality. And it's a good thing that Joseph referred to that statement by Occupy Ghana, because yes, there is an increasing and a growing concerns among everybody who either is in the front line of treating patients or is communicating whatever messages that are coming from the government team about the cases that we've seen over the last week or two. Because ideally, and this also refers to the statement at Senate, if you're having cases between 200 and 300, it presupposes that something is happening. Already, we do know that in China, Beijing has started a process of trying to lock down small parts of the city. And it's because when you rest on your oars, it ultimately means that you can have a certain resurgence. From the beginning, I thought that we needed the various MMDAs to be at the forefront of either following through whatever it is that needed to be done for enforcement when the messages are coming from the national team and the press conferences are organized. And that is why we are where we are. We have not been able to enforce the rules and the regulation. I don't know what Joseph thinks about the current state.
I agree perfectly, and that's why, I, for instance, was not a bit too excited when the restrictions were eased. But from update number 11, it's very obvious that, there's no turning back. And we are told that the opening of the schools will be used as a test case. We hope that that test case becomes one that we can all trace. And so we should be monitoring and carrying out tests on the various campuses regularly, and the data should be made available to everyone so that we know whether or not infections are going up in the schools, for instance, or not. Those are questions that we need to be given access to if we are going to decide further whether the test case is one that gives us reason to continue down the path that we are going. But the global trend we see generally is that countries that were tougher and held on to the restrictions attained more of a success rate and ended up slowing down infection rates and did better at containing the virus than others. And the unfortunate part of this that we are ignoring is the implications on our health system. And that's where the story from the Komfo Teaching Hospital is very crucial because you can see how within just one person, this is just a single individual, the impact it has had on health delivery in that part of the country at such a premier facility for the whole nation.
Absolutely. But just before we do myjoyonline.com, I'm just wondering, when the president said it's mandatory and that the police would enforce, I'm wondering, what are they enforcing exactly? What's the piece of regulation that they enforce? Yesterday, we tried to get some answers from the police with enforcement.
It had to do with one of the EIs.
They are waiting for the EI.
If you recall, one of the earlier, the health minister was directed to issue an EI to that effect about 3 weeks ago. And so if you read the text of the president's address, you realize that it was not something fresh he was announcing, but making a point that they are urging the police to enforce that directive. And so, I mean, I think it's important that reference is made to that EI and that EI is made available. The challenge we've had around this period is that the EIs that are issued, I mean, are not made public. I mean, they just gazette them. And so if you are not someone who has followed through at the assembly press to have access to, but if it's something that should be implemented, and I'm sure you would agree with me that one of the basic issues that has to do with crimes is that, I mean, people must know the crime. They must know what constitutes the crime, and they must know the law backing the crime and know the punishment attached to it. I mean, if it's not available, obviously, there's a problem.
Yeah. All right. So that's maybe we can try and do some education, God willing, tomorrow on the show.
On the EI.
Yeah. On
because
that
we have a number of
particular one.
there.
Yeah. Roland, is there something else? Or we jump to my jawline?
I wanted to talk about the concerns raised by customers of Men's Gold. And if you live in communities in which people had invested in this scheme and ultimately are not getting any end in sight to their plight and their concerns, it gets me worried. Because on the other hand, government says that it's been able to dole out bailouts to those who were customers of banks, the banks that went defunct or went into recession, whatever it is that subsequently they went through. And so I find it a bit unbelievable that government doesn't want to come to the aid of its own citizens ultimately. Then the concern should be, what should be the way forward? Because indeed, people were taken in by a scheme that was public. They were advertising, even though there was a brouhaha about whether they had a license or not. And while we talk about legality, on the part of humanity and morality, I'm thinking government should come to the aid of these customers. And it's not good at all.
I'm just thinking that, you know, we did a whole big show. We sent officials. We actually paid for them to go to Dubai, didn't we? I mean, we were here. And then that was it. They came back, the man came back, and then it's been, you know, I don't know, when it comes to the Men's Gold issues. I actually don't even know where we are with the Men's Gold stuff. I really don't know. I think
the first thing the states can do to assure the people is to follow through with the prosecution of the gentleman. I mean, that prosecution has been quite slow. The last time I went, there had been series of adjournments, each time with prosecutors asking for time to do some further investigations, and eventually this whole COVID-19 pandemic unfortunately set in. And so I think around this time when we understand his other business entities that he explains are not connected to Men's Gold are working, I mean, the least the state can do as a way of assuring people is to come to the table with the details regarding what they are doing about the prosecution and try and pursue it immediately. Once they get that done with, at least it shows that indeed they did act after there was obvious a bit of a slow pace of working on the fact that there was an entity that they believed was operating illegally and they allowed it to operate. Then beyond that, we can look at it, because trust you, if that prosecution succeeds, one of the things they are seeking to do is to sell off its assets to take the money and make it available to individuals who have filed complaints at the police stations, which is forming the base of this particular prosecution. So it is good they follow through with it.
Well, but as it is, we're here, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. We'll wait to see the kind of response that this will receive following that press conference yesterday. Let's do myjawline.com real quick. It's like a flash. Plenty of stories. The cat story, we spoke to Erastus on it. That's also myjawline.com. And what we've just been talking about, the #1 Men's Gold issue, also on myjawline.com. NDC launches a website to track failed NPP promises. But later on, they said the website had been hacked. So they pulled it down to work on it. I'm not sure if it's up again, but we can try. But we know that there was a response after that. Yesterday, by the information minister, also Occupy Ghana. Dear Ghana, have we decided to live with the virus? I don't think so. Did you see in our first bulletin at 6 a.m. somebody saying that it is people who are not godly, the people that God when God's hands are not on you, that's when you get the coronavirus. Like, oh my God.
Well,
Gosh.
I've interacted with some of the best Krife people around me, and they drink neem tree, concoctions of herbal medicines, and then they're always cautious. I'm surprised that these fanatical Christians of Ghanaians.
He's untouchable. Okay, Joseph Akabley, this is where we have to end the review. Thank you, as always. Exciting to see you.
Always good.
We lost Inshira somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's gone to the hotel and checking on Volkswagen for us.
I tell you. Please greet the Bob Marley behind you. Tell him we love him always.
I will.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, so that's Joseph Akabley there. We also had Inshirado, our colleague, also joining us. Erastus Asaridonko brought us details of that story with the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital Intensive Care Unit. Stay with us. We'll bring you sports. We've got lots of conversation. We're zeroing in on George Anda today. He's a member of parliament. We're talking about the primaries. Plenty other conversations here on our show. You've got to stay.
Now, more news here on the local scene, and Club Licensing Board Chairman Kwame Banu Akonha has revealed the regulations governing the administration of football teams demands that every club must have a fund development officer. Now, according to him, the duty of the officer is to ensure, they raise funds to meet the financial requirements of the club. Well, Muftar Nabila has the rest of the story.
The club licensing regulations governs the structures required for a successful management of a football team. Before the commencement of the current suspended football season, only Inter-Allies out of the 18 Premier League teams met all the necessary requirements of the regulations and were fully licensed. Though details of the regulations are not fully known to the general public and football fans, one area the media lenses concentrate on is the playing grounds of these teams. Kwame Banu Akonha has revealed that it is not only the playing fields that is mandatory, but clubs might also have fund managers.
With club licensing, from the kind of regulations that we are putting in place at the FA, with club licensing, guiding the clubs as to what. For instance, one of the FIFA club licensing regulations related to fund development. Each club is supposed to appoint a fund development officer, whose main role, only job at the club, is to think about how I attract the next Kotoko supporter, the issue you wanted to bring. How to attract somebody like me. Corporate world, I get a monthly income, probably I have more than 100 cedis to spare every month. I'll be able to spare 100 Ghana cedis if somebody convinces me that Kotoko are moving in this direction, and that way the 100 cedis over a certain period, so much money can be raised, and we can do A, B, C, D. Then I can see the club growing, and I will be prepared to put money in. That's the kind of marketing that Kotoko and House of Oak and other clubs needs to do.
Mr. Banu Akonha advised clubs, especially House of Oak and Asante Kotoko, to consider having a fund development manager as part of their administrations.
It doesn't take much to be able to do that, especially in these times where financial services has developed so well in Ghana. Mobile money, standing order, whatever, card payments, you can all do these things. I think the time is ripe for the people running Kotoko and House of Oak to start thinking about fund development as a core requirement on their management, because they need to create the next generation of supporters. Otherwise, they are losing them to the Liverpools and the Manchester Uniteds and co.
Away from the local scene, fans on big screens and specific cameras to celebrate towards some of the broadcast enhancements that will be used when the Premier League season restarts tomorrow. More in this report put together by Asari Bediako.
A number of innovations, including tunnel cameras and audio from Coin Toss, have been developed. Some viewers will also be given the option of listening to games with or without artificial crowd noise. Players will not hear the audio effects in the behind closed doors games. The seats nearest to the pitch will also have covers designed by each club to improve the environment both visually and acoustically. As part of the plans, the Premier League has said live video feeds featuring 16 supporters from each club will be made available to broadcasters and to clubs for use on big screens during matches. Some grounds, including Anfield, do not have giant screens, and it is understood there are no plans to install a temporary one at the home of the Premier League leaders. For goal celebrations, players should maintain distance from one another, and where feasible, broadcasters will identify a celebration camera which players can head to after scoring. Players have also been told they must not surround match officials, and there must be no spitting or noise clearing, while opposition managers will not shake hands. VAR will also resume, with extra rooms used in VAR hub for social distancing.
All right, so that was Asarbedi Akose report, looking ahead to the start or the restart of the English Premier League, and it starts tomorrow with a big liner or the top liner at the Emirates Stadium, where Manchester City take on Arsenal. There are other games to come we'll tell you about, but tonight, Bayern Munich could win another Bundesliga title. That's if they win their game against Werder Bremen at home. We'll see how that will go. We'll bring you more in our subsequent sports bulletins, but if you want to read more sports news, get to the Manjoy online sports page, and of course there are videos there as well for you to go through. And then Mohamed Kudus said that's the story, mixed 100 player shortlist for the 2020 Golden Boy Award, and you can actually click on that story and vote for him to win that award. And my 4 big lessons from Richard Kingston interview, that was Nathan Lato, Joy Sports link host, on Saturday, hosted Richard Kingston, and after put together that article. You can get there and read more for yourself. My name is Benedict Osu. Thanks so much for your company. The show continues after this short break. Don't go away.
And we told you it all happened. It was live, and subsequently an event and counter reaction, the opposition, NDC, and then the information ministry reacting swiftly. Now, the NDC said out of the 631 campaign promises by the MPP then in opposition, now forming government, only 86 promises have been delivered. And this, they say, represents only 14% of those promises. This is contrary to Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's claim that government has achieved just 78% of its manifesto promises, and it's promising to do more.
The overall summary will shock you. It will shock you. Now, this is where we talk about the actual delivery. Actual delivery. So we have moved from what the promises they remember and hope that we will, forget the rest. Now we are talking about actual delivery. So this is the overall summary, the sectorial analysis. We have discovered, ladies and gentlemen, that the 631 promises that we listed, after thorough analysis, combing through documents, what they have told us in Parliament, either through the budget, either through the state of the message on the state of the nation, either through question time in Parliament or at the committees when we have summoned ministers to appear before us to answer to their mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, it will shock you to realize that only 86 out of these 631 promises have been delivered. So the percentage achieved is 14%. 14%, not 78%. And we shall prove it. In a few minutes, you know that we are not joking at all. Agriculture, out of the 74 promises I told you earlier, only 13 have been delivered. And in subsequent slides, we shall give you a detailed breakdown. We are not just coming to give you numbers, do some quantitative analysis and leave here. No. We will give you the details, Only 18% in terms of the percentage achieved in the agri sector. Chieftaincy and culture. My own good uncle from the Volta region, if we were in another jurisdiction, he will be resigning this afternoon.
But in a quick reaction, indeed a great rebuttal at a news conference, the information minister, Kojo Ponkrumah, said the NDC is being intellectually dishonest. He accuses them of falsely increasing the manifesto promises of the MPP to arrive at their number 631 instead of what he says is their number 388.
There was a lot of drama and flash and screens and repetition in their presentation today. But if you strip it of all the drama and the screens and the flashes, in substance, if you take the form away, in substance, there were two main claims they made which the government believes must be corrected in time. One is a claim that while government in its report in February this year outlined 388 promises and accounted for those 388 promises, they have discovered an extra 235 promises which the government of Ghana has hidden or refused to account for. In their opinion, the MPP administration made a total of 631 promises and has been intellectually dishonest, mind the phrase intellectually dishonest, in not accounting for 631 and 388 rather. The purpose of seeking to increase the MPP's promises from 388 to 631 is very simple. It's twofold. As we get into the 2020 National Conversation period, one of the narratives that they seek to carve is a narrative of dishonesty. And in order to give life or credence to that narrative, they have to create scenarios that if indeed we made 388 promises, they will find ways of adding to it some 235 and claim that we made 631, and in the end say, therefore, that we have been dishonest. So,
and on the AM show, we want to broaden the conversation. That's, look, we don't want to do the party thing for now because progressively on other bulletins of the channel we'll do that. But we want to speak to the experts who monitor transparency and governance issues of our country and elsewhere in the world, and also those who teach the subject of political science. So we decided to bring on stream Dr. Alidu Seidu and his colleague, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, political scientists from the Political Science Department of the great university, the University of Ghana. And Dr. Alidu is also on stream already. And Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, do I have him also? Well, okay, so we have Dr. Alidu Seidu. Been a while, my brother.
Yeah, Mr. Walker, how are you doing?
Charlie, great, Dr. Seidu.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning to you too. And look, if the video goes off, we'll go phone line so that we get the conversation going. But as much as it is, as we're zooming you, you monitored the events of yesterday, didn't you? The two events, the NDC event and subsequently, I don't want to say the MPP event because that's the Minister for Information, the two events. What were your observations just in some few seconds or minutes of the NDC event and then the MPP event as well?
Okay, so we don't live in normal times. And this has actually limited the ability of political parties to effectively campaign. So they need to be very innovative. And one of the innovative ways they can do that is to actually do a desk-based research, and be able to speak to the issues. One, the manifesto is one of the most important. It is actually the heartbeat of an issue-based campaign. And when democracy begins to consolidate, you move away from personal attacks to engaging issues and how these issues can better the lives of Ghanaians. And when you pick a manifesto document, it serves a lot of purpose. But within this context, you can look at it from two perspectives. One, it can be used to sell a party's intentions and what a party seeks to do for Ghanaians when it wins elections. In that sense, you can use it in a more progressive manner. But it can also be used to discredit the credibility of a political party or a government of the day. Now, if you look at it within the context that the NDC used it was actually meant to discredit this government's ability to perform and whether it has actually performed. Now, this is not the first time. Imani Ghana came out and did a similar exercise.
Well, Dr. Seidu, it looks like you've muted your sound. Please make sure you. Dr. Kwame Asah-Santeh, you're also on stream. Good morning to you, Doc.
Good morning, Roland.
Well, before your colleague...
percentage of achieve and did their own research. Okay, so can I...
Yes, I see that you're in a car. Perhaps maybe you can move to a more stable area, and then you put on your video. We'll get perhaps a better internet connection. It's just the times that we are in. The internet connections are always not great sometimes. But are you back, Dr. Alidu Seidu?
Yeah, I'm back.
Great. Please continue from where you left. I think that where I missed you was the fact that we're not in ordinary times, and these are the ways by which you can discredit or use a position or point raised to discredit whether a government of the day can actualize its own promises. So continue from there for us.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Walker. So I was saying that the NDC strategy is to actually discredit the credibility and the trustworthiness of the NPP as a political party, because their ability to fulfill their promises speaks volume in high esteem. But if you make a promise and you do not live by those promises, then people will begin to be very doubtful of what you promise. And I was making a point that this is not the first time. Imani Ghana did it and scored government differently. Government came out immediately and did this and scored themselves differently. And the NDC is also scoring government differently. Now, they are all scoring each other. The scores are different simply because of the methodology that each of these three agencies are using. They all use different methodology, but also the objective. What objective do they seek to achieve? I believe that government's quick response was also to project what they have been able to do over the years, but also to discredit the NDC and the NDC's method of assessing them as being intellectually dishonest. Now, I think the Honorable Minister's intellectual dishonesty claim was based on the fact that the NDC has padded promises that they have made. Now, Mr. Walker, if you look at it, the promises that politicians make is not only what is contained in the manifesto. The manifesto is a documented proposals, mostly backed by budget or expenditure, what government intends, political party intends to do when they come to power. But when a political party leader, flag bearer, or running mate, or somebody mounts a political platform and make a promise that can convince Ghanaians to vote for them based on that promise, it counts as something that should be redeemed. So my impression is that if indeed it is true that the NDC's catalog of promises, which were unfulfilled, is more than what the NPP had in their manifesto, as the minister is alleging, then I suspect that the NDC's methodology, which I haven't seen, but I'm assuming that moved beyond what is just documented in the manifesto to include policy promises and statements which were made on campaign platforms. And that is why moving into 2020, Ghanaians will have to, political parties will have to be very careful. The Ghanaian voter population are increasingly becoming discerning, and they will definitely hold political parties to account for what they have written as manifesto and what they promise on political platforms.
Okay, it's where I bring in your colleague, Dr. Kwame Asah-Santeh. And Dr. Asah-Santeh, it's quite interesting where Dr. Alidu Seidu left off. Would you then corroborate the observation he's made so far, particularly in relation to the promises that are in print and then those that are made orally and subsequently outside the realm of electioneering? Dr. Asah-Santeh, are you on stream? Again, it's the internet connection. Dr. Asah-Santeh is a senior political science lecturer with the University of Ghana Political Science Department and also helping us do the analysis on the related issues about the unfulfilled promises by the NPP while they were campaigning, and also in their manifesto vis-a-vis what they are actually actualizing while in government. And there was a swift reaction from Kojo Nkrumah, the Minister for Information. We'll take some few of the sound bites from the event as well for both sides, and then get back onto the streams as Zoom and get interactions ongoing. Dr. Kwame Asante is a political science lecturer from the University of Ghana Political Science Department. And we again also have his colleague, Dr. Alidu Seidu, from the same department, also helping us do the analysis. Now, look, this is what Dr. Seidu just basically says. He doesn't know the methodology of the NDC and how they arrived at some 631 promises, but ultimately what it means is that they may have transcended beyond what is in print in the manifesto and gone out to again measure and benchmark what government and its official had been saying as to what they'll do for the people. Dr. Alidu Seidu, the reactions then from the Minister for Information did give a certain indication of the NDC just politicking. Should he be just tagging it as what he seems it should be?
I don't think this is politics. It is, I think it is the heartbeat of every election in a democratic consolidated state. People are interested. Why do we have government in the first place? It basically goes back to the proverbial social contract theory, where people forfeit their rights, technically, to expect. And that includes the ability of government to implement social, political, economic, security policies that can enhance the life of the ordinary citizen. So the social contract, so the manifesto promises that we keep is anchored on the original social contract. And this is not something that is politics. And moving forward, the Ghanaian population is increasingly becoming more accountable and discerning. They demand accountability from government. So you can no longer just promise anything and go away with it. Civil society organizations are also becoming increasingly vigilant in measuring, in devising mechanisms to measure these promises. So I think there is nothing more important moving into 2020 than what political promises have promised, parties have promised Ghanaians, and whether they have been able to deliver. Over the years, there have been a lot of research done which shows that there's going to be voter apathy. If you look at the Economic Intelligence Unit report, the Afrobarometer report, the Political Science Department survey, it all shows a little bit of what? Apathy. And what's the basis for this? Ghanaians are increasingly saying that now the NDC and the NPP
Well, so please continue, Dr. Seidu. Yes, please continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So basically, there have been a lot of surveys which suggest that there is likely going to be voter apathy, just as it happened in 2016. And the major reason has to do with the fact that political parties have taken Ghanaians for a ride. They make a lot of promises, you invest your confidence in them, and they come to power and they don't do anything over the years. So now the benchmark moving into 2020 and subsequent elections that will come after 2020 is the the trustworthiness of political parties in fulfilling the promises that they make to the Ghanaian citizens. There is nothing more, there is nothing less. Any other thing that borders outside of campaign promises and how they are fulfilled will be treated as tangential, because Ghanaians are now opening their eyes, and you cannot just make promises in order to win power. Make promises that you are committed to keeping and should be able to keep.
I read your publication based on your observations of 2016, and it made some references to what the political parties and the political leader needed to do ahead of this election. It was published in the Frederick Herbert Stiffing publications, and it's on their site. There was a great indication you made about the demographics of a voter population which is changing. And if you look at what the NDC did yesterday, I mean, well outlined PPT or PowerPoint presentations, very good in graphics, etc. How does that influence anybody really?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, especially if you look at the voter dynamics over the years, though it's changing a little bit, but technically the dominant party model of voter behavior is what is driving largely the voter dynamics in this country. And when you look at it roughly, the NDC and the MPP, since the beginning of the Fourth Republic, have always alternated political power and formed government and governed. But
we just lost the sound there.
From their core support base. So now the NDC or the MPP can get at least 44% of the votes coming dominantly from their strongholds. But that alone cannot win you elections. You need to get 50+1. And that is where the floating voter population comes in. And the floating voter population are usually businessmen, elites in society who are interested in the policy environment and conditions that will help their business succeed. So they look at manifesto, they pay attention to government policies and government intended policies when they come to government. So the best way you can attract them is to present it in a more accessible way. So I think the NDC moved beyond just the presentation and created a website where people can go and look at these promises, the methodology that they have used, but also verify. You can verify most of the claims that they have made if you are able to go to this website. And that is what not only the business community, but also partners that Ghana, states Ghana is a friendly nations too, can also look at this. The diplomatic community looks at what a particular government is promising, a political party is promising, and know that when this party comes to power, my government should be able to work with that particular political party. The business community and the investor community looks at your manifesto and say, oh, your
Well, we will bring more of this subsequently in bulletins after the AM show. And Dr. Lidi Seidu, we tried connecting with his colleague, Dr. Sasanti. And Dr. Lidi Seidu is a senior political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, political science department, helping us with that great analysis. And that's where we have to take you to Kumasi, because the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology indeed on Monday did welcome 1,500 students amidst the observance of strict COVID-19 health protocols. Now, deans and other heads of department were also on hand to ensure the strict adherence of these protocols. Erastus Asari Donko was on campus and filed this report.
Is the SRC hostel, and that is where many of the students who are coming back to school after the restrictions have been lifted will be lodging. Now, there are two places. Those medical students who will be having their clinicals at the Komfo Teaching Hospital, they have a hostel inside the hospital, and so that is where they will be lodging. But the other students will be lodging here, one student per room, unlike previously where we have 4 students in a room. Now, they are also observing very strict COVID-19 health protocols, and it's mandatory. If you enter or leave this premises, you must wash your hands, go through all that protocol, wear your nose mask compulsorily before you enter or come out. And they have thermometers in there to check your temperature every time you leave or come back. How has it been like for you, reopening school in the midst of COVID-19?
It's been a bit uneasy because everything is not normal here and there are so many restrictions, but we are trying.
I miss my friends though, but coming back, there are a lot of uncertainties, like we don't even know, you don't know who has contracted it. We want to come back to school, but then because of the virus, we're a little bit scared too.
All of us have our nose masks. I have my sanitizer in my bag, and I think I'm following the rules. We should be okay.
Just behind me is the Department of Pharmacy, and inside the lectures are going on. We're going to go inside to see how the seating arrangements have been done. They are having a lecture on HIV, and we can count about 30 of the students in there, and the way they are spaced, they have made sure that wherever you are seated, you will be able to catch a glimpse or listen to the lecture whilst it's going on. And so screens have been placed in between for students to be able to catch the lecture.
When you are coming in, wash your hands again or sanitize your hands. You heard me telling them as many times as they walk out of this place, if they are coming back, they have to sanitize their hands. Right. And whilst in the classroom, we have told them that they have to keep their masks intact so that they protect themselves and they protect their colleagues.
Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Kumasi.
It's a chilly morning on the University of Ghana campus, and the rains appear to signal the start of a new way of life for some final year students who showed up today. It's 9 a.m. and Emily Thelma Texan, a final year student, is already at the UG Business School. She lives in Abeka, a suburb of Accra.
Then they told me they are now putting measures in place, so I should wait and come back in the afternoon.
She maintains that she must be here to achieve the best of grades and that all she needs to do is to abide by safety protocols.
There could be distractions at home that you can't be able to learn, so as long as you wash your hands and then you sanitize your hands, I think you'll be fine, and you wear your nose masks, I think you'll be fine.
For many students like Emily, it's been nearly 3 months since the school was shut down, among others, to prevent a spread of COVID-19 after one student was reported to have contracted it. But the announcement of partial resumption 2 weeks ago has not brought the masses yet to Ghana's premier university. The sounds of crowds, cars, cheers, drumming and singing from the performing arts have given way to a deafening silence on campus. The few students that did show up hardly had their nose mask on.
Our masks are in our bags. Okay. Why? Because when we started, we've been distanced from other people. You get it? So we've practiced social distance. And the mask, when you should wear it, there's a lot of heat and then you can't really breathe.
I came here to do my exams. Yeah.
But I can see you don't have any nose mask on or anything. Let's talk about safety.
Among others, final year students are to fill COVID-19 screening questionnaires, student hall waiver form agreements that bans visit in the period, and strict adherence to hygiene, as well as the possession of at least 3 reusable face masks.
I want to have a conversation on this with a man just behind us. And Mama V.
Yeah, that's the Vice Chancellor of the University of Health and Allied Sciences, Professor John Japol. Good morning to you, sir. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, sir.
Hello, sir. Can you hear us? If you can, welcome to the AM show on Joy News. Okay, looks like we have to work on sound there. We can't quite hear him. We'll take you there live now. He's the Vice Chancellor of the University of Health and Allied Sciences. We want to check after day 1, what have been the concerns, what did he observe, how do we move forward? There are some observations on the University of Ghana campus, by the way, from that report. There are people on campus who were absolutely not either distancing themselves from one another, or they were not wearing nose mask. It was one of the things that you could obviously see. So we will be back. Let's take this report from the Ho Technical University. Stay with us.
Following the announcement by President Akufo-Addo for final year students to return to school to complete their respective courses, management of the Ho Technical University put in place measures to ensure adherence to the COVID-19 safety protocols. Signages of no mask, no entry, and hand washing stations were situated at entrance of lecture halls, hostels, and offices. The security posts were also detailed with thermometer guns to frequently check the temperature of students and faculty. Lecturers were tasked to ensure students observe social distancing and wear face masks in the lecture halls. Isaac Meiri is the head of public affairs of the Ho Technical University.
With the new directives for students, final year students, to resume today, 15th Monday, management went ahead to once again fumigate the halls of residence and the academic facilities as well. We have designed a form where we collected data of all the students who are entering the halls of residence. We also had the thermometer guns there, and we took their temperatures and kept the records on each person's form. Should in case there is an issue, we can easily trace. The university has identified or allocated some isolation rooms. We have also published our emergency lines 24/7 that anybody can call the clinic staff and they will be there to respond. The clinic also has selected some rooms down for isolation. So we are quite prepared. We cannot be 100%, but I am sure with the measures management has put in place, our students are in safe hands.
The Vice-Chancellor, Professor Ben Hunyenugan, who acknowledged receipt of personal protective equipment from the government, disclosed that the institution would soon commence producing sanitizers for use by the university community. He emphasized management's commitment to ensure compliance with the safety protocols.
Anybody who is found, whether you are a staff or student, not wearing the face mask, first of all, they will draw your attention that you have to. And when you are going to enter a classroom and you are a student and without the face mask on, you will be turned out. You see, these are self-regulated issues. And then also as a staff, if you don't wear your face mask, you cannot enter even your office. Your superiors will ensure that you don't come there. And of course, the registrar's office will issue warning letters, and it becomes a disciplinary issue because it's a law. The laws of Ghana now is saying that by executive instrument that everybody must wear it.
All right, now let's go back to Professor John Japong, who is the Vice Chancellor of the University of Health and Allied Sciences. Hopefully, we get a better connection in terms of the sound. Good morning to you, sir, again. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Good morning, Mama V. How are you today?
Very well, thank you,
You didn't mention my name too. I'm Roland, please.
Hi, Roland. How do you do?
Saleh Ade, Prof. Nice having you.
All right, so Prof, it was day one yesterday, it's day two today. Tell us about your campus and how it went yesterday. How many students, for instance, came back to school?
Well, we have much fewer numbers compared to the older universities. We were expecting around between 800 and 900 students. I need to get the exact figures. But according to the various programs, what we did was for each of the deans to meet with the students and take them through the various protocols that were expected to be followed. We have a peculiar situation here where many of our students do not live on campus. Actually, almost all final year students, except for the medical students, have to live in rented apartments in Ho. So what we have done was that for the medical students who were occupying 4 students, where 4 students were in a room, we've now reduced it to 2 students per room because the other medical students are not around, so that they can have a lot more space for themselves. The exact numbers I will need to double check, but the impression I got was that most of the students were back.
Mm. So they're mainly back to write a final exams, is that correct?
For us, it is slightly different. As you would have realized, for the bigger universities, they did most of their exams online, but their colleges of health sciences are now back to go through some other programs including some practicals and some ward work that they have to do. Ours is the University of Health and Allied Sciences, so all our programs are health-based sciences. So what we're doing is that for those who do not have to do clinical work, what they are having is a brush up of their of the work that was done online for 2 weeks, and then we have another week of revision, and then they do their exams. But the clinical students require a little more time. They need to go back to the wards and do some basic rotations before they can do their exam. So it is slightly different, and we are tailoring it according to the needs of the various programs. But most of our students will be done with their brush-up lectures within 2 weeks, and then a week of revision, and then exams. So even though we're given 6 weeks and 4 weeks of exam, we may not use all of it for all the programs, but the medical students, they have to stay in until about August when they finish.
Now, let me take you back a bit, and this question may not necessarily relate to only the University of Health and Allied Sciences, but you as broader managers of the universities, and I know you have a body that you do great consultation with. Back at the beginning, when all this was becoming new to you, what was the agreement in terms of how you intended to roll out and manage all this?
Well, I think what has happened was that we held various meetings as vice chancellors via Zoom to discuss how to take this whole process forward. I mean, as you would know, it is a new thing, and we are learning as we're doing. The whole issue of even doing online teaching was a challenge for some of us. I mean, the older universities who have the infrastructure had no problem whatsoever. I mean, very little problem. And within a very short while, they rolled everything up. And some of us needed to start from scratch. We had to build our LMS from scratch. So it took us a little bit of time, but we are almost there. And I think what is becoming very clear is that we need to re-engineer the whole phase of tertiary education and incorporate all these other issues about online learning. But we've had lots of consultations amongst ourselves as vice chancellors, and at least 3 or 4 meetings with the Minister of Education and Tertiary Education to discuss how to take all these issues forward. And then last week we met with the President to get assurances that the basic things that we needed would be provided to get us going. So a lot of consultations, but as we say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. When you start rolling out the programs, then you meet some of the challenges, and we try to resolve them to the best of our ability. But it's been a learning curve, and we are taking it one day at a time.
Well, great time to learn, but from my observation, I was thinking maybe you, the managers on one hand, and the structures of the university, you were not ready for this, or it just plainly is it that you don't have the facilities or the resources to roll this out, whether virtually or physically?
Well, nobody is ever ready for a pandemic. But when it hits, you need to do what it is that you can. As I said, we are at different levels of development as universities. The University of Ghana, which is the oldest university, is 70 years plus, and then follows the others. UHAS and UNER are probably the youngest, and we are about 8 years old. So infrastructure are different. We have a wide range of facilities. So when these issues come, you don't throw your hands in the air and say, sorry, we don't have a learning management system, so we cannot do it. You see what it is that can be done on the spur of the moment, and then try and mobilize resources to see how you can organize a crash program on this. So we've had to develop our LMS over a very short period of time, train our faculty, and everybody was just hands on deck. And I think I love my heart out to our ICT Directorate and our faculty for the great resilience they've shown over this short period, because the easiest thing to have done was to say, sorry, we don't have the system, we cannot do it. But that is not how you manage a pandemic.
But Prof, let's look at the hurdles that you have to cross going forward, because you've started. And you did say that is when you begin that you also begin to realize some of the challenges. So what have you discovered?
I mean, one of the issues that came to the fore was the fact that, I mean, I guess we knew it, but we didn't know it was that glaring. That it's not every student who has access. You know, we did our ICT team looked at the data, and over a period of time after we had rolled out our programs, we realized that initially it was about 5% of our students who hadn't had access at all, and then later on it came down to about 2%. But even if it is 2%, even if it is 2 people or 3 people or 10 people, they all deserve the right to get access. So for me, I mean, we worked with the telcos that if they were able to access the programs through our URL, there will be no charge. But you must have access in the villages that some of us come from. Some of the students couldn't get network at all to log onto the system. That is why, for me, it is important that we give everybody a chance. So this 3-week period prior to exams is very, very important for those people who didn't have access. So that is on the interface issue. But the major challenge is infrastructure for many of us. And even the older universities who had the learning management system, they did not build their learning management system for 80,000 students to be accessing. So occasionally you get some of them crashing. So
Prof, when you say infrastructure with your facility, what do you mean? What specific things are we talking about?
Oh, if we are to restrict ourselves to the learning management system, I'm talking of the hardware to develop, I mean, all the servers that you require to give access to. We have about 5,000 students in all, giving them access through a server with unlimited bandwidth and all that. We just were not prepared for that. And as I was saying, even the bigger universities who had the servers and all that were not set up to take care of large numbers. They built their LMS for distance learning students, which are not as high as the total numbers that we are talking about. So it's one of the issues that we've tried to engage government on. They've made some promises, and some of the other agencies have promised to work with us. I'm very much aware that NITA and Electricity Company of Ghana are working with us to try and improve our infrastructure. But I mean, that is on a long-term basis. I mean, but we have to deal with the crisis now. So we are making do with what we have.
We've had this refrain transitioning from the international front about how we're now going to live the new normal going forward. How do you intend, one as vice chancellors and you as an individual managing this great university, to ensure that virtual learning becomes part and parcel of the learning system at the tertiary level?
Yeah, so I guess it's about the same thing that I've been talking about again. It means now the reality has hit us that you cannot depend only on face-to-face interactions. So we need to build our systems. The systems need to be developed. And we are talking to government to make resources available for us to be able to get this done properly. government asked us as vice chancellors to put together some estimates of what it is that was required to get the systems going. And almost every university that I know of was asking for close to $1 million to have a proper functioning system. The Ministry of Education suggests that, well, maybe we could have a system that is developed for all of us to make use of, because if everybody is going to ask for $1 million, maybe government may not be able to provide it immediately. So can we have a system that is built for everybody to make use of? Those are the discussions that are ongoing now, and I hope that government will make do of what it has promised, because without that, then we will be going around in circles.
Back to the same point, back to Bhutan, like we always do as a third world country. Well, Mavi, you have a question?
Yes, I was just thinking, so what we've been talking about, we've been concentrating on the final year students. Is there a master plan for the rest of the students?
Yeah, again, we have discussed this, and the position of the ministry is that this will be a learning experience for all of us. And depending on how things go, then the next group of students may be allowed to come onto campus. Because as you would know, I think I heard that KNUST has about 13,000 final year students, and only the health sciences students were coming, which is about 1,500 or thereabout, which presupposes that for each year group, there are about 13,000 students or thereabout. So these are huge numbers. To bring them all onto campus will be an issue. But the good thing for them, again, is that just as they've managed to finish their teaching and even exams with most of the final year students, they've done the same for the other levels. So if we manage to take good care of our clinical students who need all this time to get things going, then probably what will happen will be to get the clinical students from the other year groups also to come and finish. And then we see how the pandemic pans out and make decisions as we go along. Because yes, we can talk about online teaching and all that, but even assuming that we're able to get all these things going, we really need to re-engineer the whole space to get things going properly. Yeah.
Just finally for me, Prof, is there going to be a certain form of cuts in terms of fees, knowing that we didn't, as students, we didn't use your facilities entirely for the semester that you charged us for the fees that we paid already?
Yeah, it is academic user fees, they say.
That is a very interesting question, and I've had a few people ask those questions, and legitimately so. But the truth of the matter is that the universities in this country are completely underfunded. We are struggling to keep the universities running. Government basically pays our salaries. And the various budget lines hardly come. And when I say government, I mean government. I'm not referring to MPP
as in the states. As in the states.
Yes, that is the state of affairs, and it's been so for a very long time. So these fees were introduced as academic facility user fees. If I tell you how much money we've had to spend to get a temporary online system going, you have no clue. So for us, reduction of fees is not even on the tables because we are running at a loss. Education, tertiary education for that matter, is very expensive and somebody must pay for it. And I agree that there are many students who may not have the wherewithal to be able to pay all these fees. But as happens in many parts of the world, brilliant students and people who are eligible to go to tertiary education should not be denied because they cannot pay. So we need to put in place systems. And this is where our loan systems, our grant systems should be kicking in to support those who really need that, so that there can be a repayment system after we leave school. Unfortunately, many of us who benefited from these loan schemes have not redeemed ourselves. At least I remember those of us who went to university in the 80s. I mean, even when we finished and we wanted to pay, there was no system to collect the loans that we collected back. So many of my contemporaries, I can assure you, were not able to pay, not because they didn't want to pay, but because the system was not there. Now the system has improved, and therefore we should all ensure that we pay the loans that we take, and so that others can also benefit from that. But absolutely, education and tertiary education, for that matter, is very expensive.
I know I said finally, but what happens to the next academic calendar? If somebody is looking forward to going to the university this year, what's the way forward?
Again, this is something that we've been discussing. From the look of things, definitely academic year cannot start in August. So we have to look and see how the pandemic pans out. Because let's remember that this is not the first time. We've had instances where the academic calendar had to be moved forward because of some circumstances. So my prediction, and again, it's just a prediction, depending on how things pan out, the most probable thing is that instead of August, probably in October or maybe even in January, if the pandemic goes down. And if we have to wait till January to start the academic year, then it means that we need to either reschedule the academic year to begin in January or work out a crash program to be able to end the academic year in July again. But for now, everything is just people's speculations, and we don't know how the epidemic is going to end.
Absolutely.
And, as we all know, it has to be health first. So.
Yeah. Well, Prof, for those of us who love Christmas, we're just praying and hoping that it doesn't take us to Christmas. But thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, Professor John Japon there. He's a Vice Chancellor of the University of Health Allied Sciences, joining us from his base in Ho. We should visit him one of these days. Well, up next, Roland Walker has a conversation with the Member of Parliament for Ewutu Senya West, Mr. George Anda. It's ahead of the primaries this weekend, the NPP primaries. Stay with us. Roland Walker has that conversation.
And that interaction is coming on. He's in the studio. Nenyi George Anda is the Deputy Minister for Communication. I know that position will come in handy as he goes into the primaries of the election this weekend. His main contender is one Mr. Joseph Ato. He's Member of Parliament for Ewutu Senya West. He is the incumbent. That's a great tag to go into this primary with. Welcome.
Thank you very much, my brother. How are you doing?
I'm good.
It's been a while.
Yes.
You're looking good.
You've not been looking out for me. I've not been looking out for you.
The best way to defend is to attack. But let me say good morning to your viewers, especially those that are watching us from Ewutu Senya West, the delegates from Ewutu Senya West, and good morning.
Yeah, definitely. You're a friend of the show, so usually we treat friends of the show very friendly. But it's always important for us to dissect the issues as they are.
Sure.
What's the number of your delegates in the first place?
It's about 650 delegates.
Oh, about 650. That's a manageable figure.
Well, it depends on what you mean.
Okay, so usually what has characterized the elections of the political parties is sharing of TVs, mobile phones, etc. Which one are you sharing?
I think for us, we're sharing the message of the positive things that we have done. We are riding on the success of what we've been able to do in the past 3.5 years the success of the MPP, the promises that we are delivering on, the change that we are bringing to Ewutu West and the country as a whole. So the things that we campaigned on in the 2016 elections are what we are campaigning on, and that's what the delegates, and indeed beyond the delegates, have bought into.
Your constituency is very close to Accra. Does it make it difficult to be an MP for that constituency in the first place? Because it's almost like semi-cosmopolitan sort of.
Well, I guess so. I guess it's a bit difficult because you need to understand what drives, what motivates the electorate, and you cannot classify them as cosmopolitan entirely, and you cannot classify them as rural entirely. In fact, a significant number of the youth from the constituency tend to come towards Kaswa and Accra to work, and then they go back. So it's the dynamics are different, and you know, Ewutu West is unique because it has the Senya side, which is a fishing community, and then the Ewutu side, which is a farming stroke trading community. So the dynamics are quite unique.
Your contender says that he will win 50% of the delegates' votes.
Well, I don't know how getting 50% is a win. So obviously, even his strategy falls flat in the face. It's for the primaries. You're looking at the first past the goalpost.
So it has to be 50 plus 1.
Oh, it has to be 50 plus 1, and for me, I think looking at what we've done in the constituency, looking at the feedback from the delegates themselves are telling us, I don't think that we should get anything less than 65 to 70% of the votes.
Joseph Edu is not a first-timer contesting you. So it makes the dynamics of this election a bit very much familiar, but also a bit tensed. Is that how you feel within your campaign team?
No, not at all. I think for me, competition is good, and it creates opportunity for different people to view different types of messages, different types of leadership, and for them to make an informed decision as to who they are going to support. We have been campaigning on the message. We've been campaigning on the success. We've been campaigning on things that we believe that we can do better. You have a situation where people are campaigning with insults and image denting, which for me, I don't think that that's the way to go. But putting that aside, I think that Saturday is not too far. God is going to speak. The delegates themselves have been saying that Ewutu West seems to have formed a kind of behavior where every 4 years they change their parliamentary candidate. And looking at the development that we've brought in, looking at the change that we've brought in, looking at the infrastructure that we've brought, looking at the jobs that we have created, and looking at the unity that we have created in the constituency, they believe that another 4 more years and even more would certainly put Ewutu West in a better place. And it's the delegates themselves that are saying that. So I think it's a good thing, and inshallah, God would speak, the delegates will speak on Saturday, and we'll continue doing what we're doing.
If this was the main election and you were fighting another opponent from another party, I'll ask the critical questions about what development you've brought into the constituency. But nonetheless, I'll give you the opportunity to say that, because I know for intra-party elections, it has no bearing on that. But
well, I mean, leadership is leadership, and of course, if you haven't, for me, because I'm an incumbent MP, it obviously makes sense to be able to put out my track record, because we're going to campaign based on that track record. So if you're talking about infrastructure, I think that in Ewutu Senior West, we've done quite a bit. With the support of the First Lady, Rebecca Foundation, we're able to renovate the Bojuase Maternity Clinic. We're able to put up an incubator there. It's never happened in the constituency before. We've been able to have a dedicated doctor, resident doctor there. We've done the renovation of the first phase of the Bojuase Market. We've extended water to over 31 communities in Ewutu Senior West. We've done supported the reconstruction of the Bojuase Mosque. We're currently constructing an AstroTurf in Bojuase. You come to the Ewutu Breku area. With the support of the Imperial Homes Foundation, we put up an ultramodern 2-classroom block. We currently reconstructing or paving the Derba grounds. You go to Senya. I think maybe that's the biggest thing is the London Beach Wharf that is being constructed in Senya. We've donated loads of computers to the various schools, renovated ICT labs. We've carried out vacation classes. We've done for traders. We got a microfinance company to come into the constituency and to support them in giving them loans. We've done scholarships for, I think so far we're running to about 200 needy but brilliant students. And we've given over 600 youth in the community jobs. You're talking about school feeding. From the time that President Kufuor left office, Ewutu Senior West had 5 schools on the school feeding program. When the NDC came into power, they couldn't add even just one. Currently, we have 63 schools that are on the school feeding program, and you can do the math, okay, and find out how many people have been given employment through the school feeding program. If you're just looking at 5 people that are cooking, the people that are providing supplies and stuff like that. So we've managed to a large extent improve the economy in Ewutu Senior West. Now that said, there are some misses as well, and for me, the biggest miss today is the construction of the Bojuase Swedru Road, which is a big
stretch. Yeah.
Yes, it's a terrible road.
Are you working towards so that your next term at least you have
not even the next term. The contract has been awarded, so we're expecting that in the shortest possible time the contractor will move to site, and then that road will be done. You're talking about the construction of the town roads in Breku. That is also a mess to date. But the fact that we recognize these messes means that we're on top of the game, and we definitely are going to make sure that we can do what we need to do. We're talking about planting for food and jobs. We've done a lot of programs. I mean, the distribution of coconut seedlings to 10,000 farmers. One district, one factory. There's a Imperial Homes there. There's the interesting thing about Imperial Homes is there was a lot of illegal sand winning in that enclave. So what Imperial Homes are doing is to win the sand legally, put a scheme to make sure that the places that they've won sand, the area is regrassed, okay, and then add value to the sand that is being winning. So all the concrete products that are being used are coming from there. They have a fantastic establishment in there. Then you're looking at the APEP gas production, the gas cylinder production, which is also just about starting operations in Ewutu Senior West under the One District, One Factory initiative. So, Roland, I think that we have done quite a bit. There's every reason why we should be able to go hitting our chest and confidently asking for 4 more years to do more for Ewutu Senior West, for the people of Ewutu Senior West. and I believe that the people of Ewutu Senior West and the good people of Ghana, by extension to the NPP, will give us that additional 4 years to go ahead.
Yeah, there's a considerable expectation on your part that if you become MP, because it's also partly an agrarian area or an economy that is also based on agriculture, will have a greater development of our growers, whether it's cassava also. How are we working towards that?
Well, so I did mention the issue about the coconut seedlings, for example, and so that's one initiative that is taking off. You know that the Ayensu Starch Factory is also situated in my constituency, and there are a few issues with the management of that factory. And so once those issues are addressed, then that whole outgrower scheme kicks off again. You're looking at pineapples that are being produced in the constituency. You're looking at cocoa that is being produced in the constituency. So the mass spraying, the pruning of the cocoa trees and replanting of the cocoa trees are all taking place in the constituency as well. But that said, I mean, so that is from the Ewutu side predominantly. Now when you come to the senior side, that's what I mentioned about the London Beach Wharf or the mini harbour, which is currently being constructed. So then that creates an opportunity for value to be added to the fish that is caught. It comes in with a cold store, it comes in with a clinic, it comes with a creche, okay, with offices and stuff like that. And most importantly, a place where the canoe owners can bet their canoes when they are not fishing, so the destruction that happens to them when there's a big wave and stuff like that will all be curtailed. And I think that for Ewutu Senior West and predominantly Senior, that's one of the biggest things that happened in their lifetime.
Well, I spoke to somebody who is a member of your party. I believe he's also a delegate. And one of the things he said was that, and I believe he said he was going to vote for you. But one of the reasons why he cited was that because you're a deputy minister, it wraps off them. And how does that become handy when you're a deputy minister, and so it means that you're able to pool resources or not?
I'll tell you a story. There was one of the delegates was telling me that he was looking for an opportunity to get a scholarship, and he had tried everything possible, and he wasn't getting through. So he asked to see the person that was in charge, and when he went there, the person declined, and the guy was like, George Andre is going to be very disappointed because he really, really wanted me to further my education. Then the person turned and says, which George are you talking about? And he basically said, so he's the one that is pushing you, you want to do this because George is asking you to add more value to yourself. He says, yes. It's okay, I'll see what I can do. So I think that definitely there are opportunities that people get. There are things there are doors that open if you have the right level of clout, you have the right connections. And I don't think that having the opportunity of being a minister or a deputy minister makes you any better than an MP. I think it's just additional responsibility that you get, but depending on how you leverage on the relationships that you are able to build, it can rub off positively on your constituency.
And you have done that positively based on what you're telling me. But if we have to look at the elections going forward, this primary this weekend, what are your main key messages? And for many times, you're a great communicator too, so you can have some key points to say, these are the messages I want to tell these number of just over 600 delegates, and I believe...
So you know, I'm sure that you do recall that going to 2016, we were campaigning with the mantra, power to do more, that we were campaigning for power to be able to do more for our country, do more for our community, do more for ourselves. And I guess in the last 3 years, like I've narrated, in the last 3.5 years, there's a lot that we've done with the power that we have that has been given to us in Ewutu Senior West. In the key areas, I talked about health, I talked about education, I talked about agriculture, I talked about jobs, I talked about infrastructure, I talked about economic empowerment. In all those areas, there's evidence, it's clear that we have been able to do more than what we came to meet. And people in Ewutu Senior West, to a large extent, are extremely proud now to be saying that they come from Ewutu Senior West. And I think that those are the messages that are cutting through to the delegates. You talk about even the kind of unity in Ewutu Senior West. You're coming from a situation where the leadership that was in control was not uniting the constituency. Now you cut across from the reverend ministers of the religious organizations, to the traditional authorities, to transporters, to traders. Everybody is coming together. Everybody is looking at putting Ewutu Senior first, and I think that is one of the big things that we've been able to do. I mean, all the promises that, as a party, we had made to Ewutu Senior West, or the commitments that we have made to Ewutu Senior West, I believe that it's time to pay off.
Ultimately, what would it mean for you if you are able to, again, get re-elected as a PC or the parliamentary candidate?
I guess it would be a big demonstration of the level of confidence that Ewutu Senior West are reposing in me and my party. Opportunity to, not opportunity, but a clear statement that we need to do more with the power that they are giving to us. A clear statement that Ewutu Senior West deserves the very best, and a statement that the misses that have happened over the past 3.5 years must be corrected, and that we should create a situation where Ewutu Senior West is a go-to place to work, a go-to place to live, a go-to place to be with your family and your friends.
One of the integral aspects of you being a party person and seeking re-election is for you to have a good relationship with the party executives or the constituency. Do you have that?
I think to a large extent, yes. I mean, you probably will not get everybody to be 100% on side, and that is the reality of life. But I think to a large extent, a majority of the leadership of the party in the constituency are supporting my bid for another term.
Okay. We will take this further, and we'll say that on the show. We'll support you. We're hoping that you again will be elected as the PC. You're a very good person, very resourceful, very transformational in the West, that you tend to give out to inspire many people. And I hope that your constituents see that you're a national asset just beyond the constituency. How do you drum that home into their minds when you are communicating with them? Because I'm asking this because of the politics that we play in our country. We don't tend to hail our heroes very often.
Well, I think the biggest endorsement or the biggest testimony to the style of leadership is how you're able to impact people's lives and how you're able to impact the community. So the people that we are given an opportunity to complete their tertiary education, the people that we are given an opportunity to take loans from microfinance company to improve their businesses, the communities that have never had pipe-borne water that are currently opening the taps and getting water, the communities that didn't have electricity and are currently able to switch on electricity, the communities that had terrible roads, the communities that didn't have anybody that they can point out and say that this person has been given a job and he's coming back to the community to help another person to become like him. Okay, I think those things are clearly evident in Ewutu Senior West. However, I'm not saying that we are done in Ewuti Senior West, and that's why we're saying that we want to do more. We have to do more. We don't have a choice. We have to do more, and that is where we have to be. It's not a tick in the box and say that happy days, yeah, we're done. Let's go. There's a lot more that we have to do, and we can only do that if we come together, if we continue believing in the leadership of the NPP, because you must understand that whatever happens at the national level, at the macro level, is what trickles down to the constituency level. So, I mean, there's really no point in saying that we've done so much in the Ewuti Senior West, but we are not happy with MPP. It's being happy with MPP that will make us happy with MPP in the Ewuti Senior West, and I think that's obvious.
Is that resounding enthusiasm that was associated with the party in 2016 still there as you enter these primaries? Not on your level, generally.
I think, listen, to be honest, I think that when your party is in power, the expectations that people have are extremely high.
Very high.
Even if somebody is arrested by the police, okay, for a road traffic regulation, he or she expects you to be able to make a call, and then he should be set free. So I think that those...
You've received a number of such calls?
I've received a number of those calls. I mean, sometimes it's very embarrassing to try and talk to a policeman that you know that he's doing his work. Sometimes I say I've heard, and I mean, is this what it is? But yeah, I think those are the downsides, the level of expectations that people have of your party when your party is in power. That's sometimes a bit of a challenge to manage. But to a large extent, I think once your party is in power, you remember what ex-President Kufuor used to say, that it's better for you to be a cleaner with your party in power than be a general secretary when your party is in the opposition. So once your party is in power, there's some clout, there's some happiness, there's a feeling of belonging, a feeling of patriotism, a feeling of pride that comes with it. We need to manage the expectations of our people.
Well, your last word to the delegates before you go into this election. I know that you may make some more appearances before.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's the delegates that select whoever it is that is going to lead them. So it's their decision for them to make. For me, I've offered myself to serve again. I believe that with hard work, with humility, with honesty, with achievements on the ground, the delegates themselves would make the right choice. We should be thinking of selecting somebody who, beyond the primaries, would lead Ewuti Senior West. So you want somebody who is going to challenge, or he's going to defend the position that we currently hold against the NDC. And I'm trusting that the delegates in the Ewuti Senior West would make my heart very happy. 21st is Father's Day, and I think that the biggest gift that Ewuti Senior West can do for me on Father's Day is to continue praying for me and to give me every sounding victory on the 20th. And I'm counting on your support, and I know that by the grace of God, it will happen.
Well, our wishes are all with you. And
Thank you very much.
Best. We wish you all the best in this primary. We'll be monitoring the situation. Of course, this is your election headquarters. We're bringing to you live across the country that election of the MPP, 168 constituencies, just one short of 169. And we'll bring you all the update right here on your election headquarters. And that's Nenyi George Anda. He foremostly is the Deputy Minister of Communication. He helps. And if you have a Deputy Minister of Communications as your MP, it also is a better help for you as well, and a better pride coming from your community. He's contesting in that primary this weekend. His contender is one Mr. Joseph Adu, but we say that, look, he's a regular on the show. Our hearts are out to him as well and all the support. We wish you all the best, sir.
Thank you very much, Roland, for the endorsement. And I'll deliver the seat for you. Not just the primary, but the main election will deliver as well.
You've inspired me in many fronts, so it will be good to have you back in
The feeling is mutual, Roland.
Yes, sir. Sharp. Well, moving on. More than 200 villages along Ghana's coastline, they rely on fisheries as their main primary source of income. Now, Ghana's small pelagic fisheries, however, which is crucial for food security and livelihood, however, is on the brink of collapse following decades of over-exploitation. The illegal practice of psycho-fishing, which is a transshipment of fish at sea from industrial trawlers to local canoes, has had a particularly destructive impact or effect on Ghana's small pelagic fisheries. Nigerian News, Richard Kojo-Nyakun went undercover for several weeks in some of these vessels to capture the illegal fishing business that are said to have been suspended. We're bringing you excerpts as we get ready for the second part, which will air right here on Joy News this evening at 6:30 p.m. Yeah.